Chapter 18. I flew across the room, tossing aside the stand and sending it clattering to the other side of the room. Mom lay on the floor. Mom? I put one arm under her legs, the other around her waist, scooping her up in my arms. Her body flopped against mine as I carried her to the infirmary and laid her down on a bed next to Dad's. I dug around for smelling salts and waved them under her nose. Her eyelids fluttered. I don't feel so well. My efforts to get her to sit didn't work. She groaned and lay back down. Mom, what hurts? She licked her lips. My stomach. Really bad cramps. She rolled a bit with the pain. You're bleeding. I grabbed some extra sheets and towels from the linen closet and spread them under her on the bed as best I could. She lay propped up on some pillows, holding her stomach. Oh, her face was pale. You shouldn't have done that. I'll find the clue. My words spoke what I wanted to be feeling, but I wasn't. All I could think was that she had to be okay. I couldn't do it without her, could not be responsible for all of us. I wasn't up to it. Not even thinking, I reached to loosen my hair, put up my wall, but my hand found only the back of my head, which was covered with soft prickles. I held my open hand in front of my eyes. My wall was gone. It didn't matter whether I felt up to the task or not. Our lives depended on me. My fingers curled into a tight fist before releasing. Mom? Her eyes shut. Hurts. My hand touched her arm. Cramps? No, she grimaced. Worse. It was crucial to figure out what was wrong with Mom before I knew how to help, if I could. But paging through the index of one of the medical books, I found what I was looking for. I quickly scanned through descriptions of pregnancy complications. Mom sighed. I know what it is, Eli. I had it with Therese. I looked at my mother. What happened? Her eyebrows rose. Nothing. They put me on bed rest. As I glanced over at Dad, I noticed a syringe on the bedside table. A small bottle of the sodium nitroprusside sat beside it. I picked it up. Empty. She looked at the bottle in my hand and raised her eyebrows a bit. I had to try. He may be our only way out. Lexie walked in. She rushed to Mom's side as soon as she saw her face. I explained what was going on. Then I looked at Mom. So you'll stay in bed until I get us out of here? She tried to get up. I need to. With a gentle touch, Lexie pushed her back. No, we can do it. I'll help Therese with the babies. I already told her Dad was sick. I'll tell her you're just hanging out with him and getting some rest. Lexie looked at me. And Eli will figure out how to get us out of here. She was the last person I expected to be confident in my abilities as a savior. Before she left, Lexie kissed Mom on the cheek and she whispered to me, Can you get us out of here? She didn't wait for an answer. Mom stared at the ceiling. This puts a kink in things. No, we'll take care of everything, really. You just need to lie still. She sighed. Eli? I like your haircut. I picked up her hand and held it between both of mine. Although touching someone still felt like a struggle, so strange after so long without the sensation, it was becoming more normal. Maybe I needed to get used to it. If we got out of here, we would all have to get used to normal again, whatever that might be. Normal again, to me, would be to touch someone without having to summon up the courage. Mom, what did the doctor say when this happened before? She didn't answer right away. It wasn't that big of a deal, really. Did they tell you it could happen again? Yes. And that wasn't a problem? Even on bed rest, there was a chance it could have been bad enough that they would have to do an emergency C-section. That's what they told me. They also said, What? What did they say? Mom leaned back again. Because I was getting a bit older, they recommended that Therese would be my last baby. I felt my heart in my throat. Did Dad know that? Of course. And he let you have more babies? Down here with no doctors? I didn't need the answer. She shut her eyes. I covered her with a blanket and left, careful to be quiet as I closed the door. Out in the hall, I leaned against the wall for support. I had to figure out what Ducken meant. Was it the clue? I needed to find out. Fast. For the first time in 6 years, I did not have all the time in the world. Chapter 19. Ducken. I tried it as a password in the computers, even tried to figure out a numeric code that might be attached to the sequence letters starting with the basics, each letter's position in the alphabet. Nothing. Everything I tried seemed too easy. I knew what I had to do. Therese and Lexie were in the kitchen eating. Reese, we have to tell you something. Lexie looked at me with wide eyes, shaking her head. Therese looked from one of us to the other. Lexie spoke first. Mom's not feeling well. She's in bed for a few days. Therese's eyes widened as she set down her fork. Is she okay? I tried to keep my voice upbeat. Yeah, she'll be fine. We're going to get her help soon. Therese's eyes narrowed and the corners of her mouth turned down. You're lying to me. If I was ever going to prove I wasn't just out for myself, I needed to start somewhere. We aren't lying. Lexie waved her hand from behind Therese, trying to get my attention. I ignored her. Lexie's shoulders slumped. I continued. Reese, we aren't lying, just not telling you everything. I got through to Eddie on the internet. At least I think I did. She just stared at me. Reese, you were right about everything. Eddie is fine. Graham, too. It's a long story. They thought we were dead all these years. They're going to try and find us. Try to get us out. Father did it. She didn't even blink. She just knew. That jolted me a bit. Yeah. I told you so. Yeah, you did. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. Truly sorry. I put a hand on her arm. Her eyes slowly tracked to my hand on her arm. I moved my hand away from her. I didn't remember the last time I touched her. Maybe I never had. She looked up at me. Can we go home? I think so. I forced a grin. And now we need your help. We have to find the code for the door in order to get out, okay? I think I found a clue. Dad actually told me this word, and I think it might be a clue. Lexie wiped her chin on my shoulder. What's the clue? Turducken. Lexie spoke up. Didn't we have that for Christmas one year? Yeah, it was great. My mouth watered. No, it was disgusting. Lexie pushed her plate away. Dad made me eat a piece. Ugh. Do you remember anything about it? Lexie didn't say anything, but her shoulders rose slightly. Therese took a drink of water, spilling some. I dug around in one of the drawers. My knuckles were sore, and I remembered seeing a bottle of ibuprofen. I tried to piece together a password on his computers. Nothing worked. I found the bottle. Totally expired. I swallowed 2 anyways. Lexie looked at me. Now what? I hopped up to sit on the counter. Don't know. Any ideas? Therese wiped her eyes. Her voice was meek. Do you think the word is supposed to trigger something? Make you think of something else that is the code? I made an attempt to encourage her, which was not something I was experienced at. That might be true. Good thinking. At least it sounded sincere to me. Lexie groaned. Why are you even trying to figure this out? Hello, Dad is a brainiac, for cripe's sake. Despite everything, he's still way smarter than you, Eli. Can't we wait for him to get better and just tell us the code? Mom and Dad need medical help that we don't have. We can't wait. Does he truly want us to figure it out? Therese looked skeptical. For a moment I glanced at Lexie. Of course he does. So please, try to think of anything at all that might help. Even if it seems stupid, let me know, okay? Therese nodded and stood up. They're waking up from their nap soon, she said. I'll check on them. Lexie went with me to check on Mom and Dad. I'll stay with them, Eli. They were both asleep. I needed to think. And I did my best thinking when I ran. On the treadmill, I focused. Turducken, that long ago Christmas. What did I remember? Everything. I needed to remember everything. Free association. A chicken inside a duck inside a turkey. A turkey stuffed with a duck stuffed with a chicken. Poultry, game bird, waterfowl, webfeet, rooster, hen, drake, mallard, nothing. I had nothing. I got off the treadmill and held my hands over my head, catching my breath. I had run more than 8 miles. Eli? Lexie beckoned from the door. I may have thought of something. I walked over to where she stood with her arms crossed. What? I'm not sure. She leaned against the wall. Maybe it's nothing. I wiped my face with my sleeve and forced myself to wait silent. We'd just gone home for Christmas vacation when those things came. Turduckens. Yes. I'd missed lunch to take a final, and then ride home. I was starved, so I went to the kitchen to ask Els to make me a sandwich or something. Dad was there. We just got to talking because I hadn't seen him since Thanksgiving. And he was so excited when they started carrying in those turduckens. I asked him why he was so excited about a bunch of turkeys, and he said they have a surprise inside. That's it? She shrugged a little. Sorry. No, I wasn't being mean, Lex. Honest, it might help. Right. She left. I stripped my sweaty shirt and dropped the floor to stretch. Lexie came back in. I'm wrong. About what? What he said. It wasn't there's a surprise. It was... Oh, now I remember, because he said it in a silly voice like a French accent. I remember because he never did that. Acted silly. He said, eats, not just a turkey. There is a mystery inside. She waited. Hello, I remembered. Does it help? I didn't answer. My mind was whirling. A mystery inside? So familiar. I'd heard that recently. But where? And when? A mystery inside. Those words ate me up. For the next hour, I sequestered myself in Dad's office and looked through everything I could find in the papers, books, CDs, even some of the National Geographics. Nothing struck a chord. I gave up. Had to. I was driving myself crazy. Out in the hall, I ran into Therese. For the first time ever, her hair was down, not in pigtails. Her eyes were red. She put her head down and tried to walk right by me. What's wrong? She didn't answer, but I knew. She was scared. Something else about her was different. Reese, I know you're upset about Mom and Dad. We haven't even given you a chance to deal. We're just shoving all this on you. I knelt, so I looked up at her. I know we've been a crappy brother lately. She wiped her eyes. You've always been a crappy brother? Her accent was gone. Okay, fine. I've always been a crappy brother. But I'm here now, okay? For whatever you need. I figured it out, why she looked different. She wasn't in purple. Instead, she wore black. That and having her hair down made her look older. No, not older. Just her own age for once. Funny, the compound had a way of making me feel older than I was. I'd felt like an adult since I was 9. The compound seemed to have done the opposite to Therese. She'd stayed the same, perhaps even regressed. Maybe she felt a change coming, so she felt she had to change too. Want to go to Dad's office with me? She nodded. In the office, she was quiet, just leaning against the door and looking around. Why do you call me Little Miss Perfect? Embarrassed, I stammered. You are like perfect. You always do the right thing and say the right thing, and everyone loves you for it. No, she paused. Not everyone. Huh? Lexie doesn't love me. Neither do you. Yes, she does. She just doesn't show it. She waited a moment. And you, Eli? Do you love me? Of course, you're my sister. But you don't like me. And that's worse than not being loved. She started to leave. Reese, wait. She turned back, looking at my feet, stalling. Honestly, I've had a hard time here without Eddie. I was closer to him than anyone, and you're a lot like him. I took a deep breath. I hated that you were here and he wasn't. Even though it was my fault he wasn't here, I had blamed her. It was always the situation, not you. You're my little sister. Yeah, I do like you. One of her shoulders went up and down. You know, you're really not that bad a brother. Really? I wanted to know. There's still a chance for you anyways. She smiled a tiny bit. Want to go see the babies with me? I'd been cooped up in the office for hours. Maybe new scenery would give me a fresh perspective. Or maybe I was trying to live to my new status of a not-so-crappy brother after all. Just for a while, I've got to get back to Mom and Dad. In the nursery, Lucas and Kara romped. They threw beanbags at each other while Quinn played in the playpen. Lucas skipped over to me. Play with us, Kay? Yeah. Then it hit me. Lucas had said those words. The mystery inside. The first day I came to their room. Lucas! What? Come here a sec. I whispered in his ear. Can you show me your clown? Remember that you showed me before? Kay, they can't see him, though. Lucas's eyes darted to Kara and Quinn. Sure. He led me to the closet. The clown came out from the hiding place. You'll be careful? I liked listening to him, to his nearly 5-year-old diction. Yeah. Piece by piece, I took the clowns apart, setting them down until I held the inner clown. Shaking produced nothing but silence. Closer inspection revealed no secret notches or buttons. Then I read the word written on the bottom again. At first, I'd assumed it was only the manufacturer, but perhaps... Hey, Reese, come here. Lucas tried to grab the clown from me. Don't let her see. I held it out of his reach. Lucas, it's okay. She came into the closet. What are you guys doing in here? Reese, is this French? Over Lucas's head, I handed her the smallest clown. Squinting, she read the word, au bois. Lucas kept trying to get it back. I pushed him out of the way. Reese, what does it mean? Translated? High wood. I groaned. Talk about cryptic. Thanks. I took the clown back, wondering what to do next. Tree started to leave, then stopped. Is that something to do with the code? Lucas took the clown from my hand. I shook my head. I thought it was, but it doesn't make any sense. Tree shrugged. I guess not. What would my oboe have to do with it? My heart jumped. What? Au bois. High wood. That's where the word oboe comes from. Au bois, oboe. I tried to keep my voice calm as I grabbed her arm. Touching people seemed more normal all the time. Is your oboe in the music room? She nodded. I raced out of there. In the music room, Teresa's oboe was on its stand. I took it apart and scrutinized every section. Mystery inside. Did that refer to the clown or the oboe? What? The case caught my eye. I brushed the parts aside and focused my attention on the case. Solid, sturdy, the case had probably cost a lot of money, too. That wasn't a priority as I tore into it, ripping out the lining. The case was empty. Nothing. I kicked the pile of lining nearest to my left foot. A piece of paper fluttered out. Between my fingers, the item felt more like parchment. The paper was blank. No, no, no. With the parchment firmly in my grip, I left the room and went to the kitchen. I sat in the nook and the paper on the table in front of me, and I tried to figure out the reasoning for it all. Dad telling me the word turducken, which led to Lexie remembering the mystery inside, which led to Lucas and the nesting dolls, obviously a present from Dad. From there, au bois, which led to Teresa's oboe. Had we all played our part? We'd all played our part, hadn't we? Was that my role to put it together? I looked at the parchment. Was this also meant for me to figure out? As I flipped the parchment over and over, something occurred to me. When we were 8, Eddie and I had been into playing spy games. Dad gave us invisible ink and we wrote secret messages. But that was from a kit. I didn't have any more. Something else came to mind. A chemistry lesson Dad had done with me. You could make an ink. Out of what? I carried the parchment into the lab. I remembered. Phenylethylamine. And that could be revealed by something. Damn, I couldn't remember. Vapors, some kind of vapors. In the lab, I scanned the shelves of chemicals, hoping something would ring a bell. It had to be something simple every day, right? If it was too complicated, Dad risked me not figuring it out. He did want me to figure it out, didn't he? No, of course he didn't. Even if I had figured out the first clue to Ducken, he wouldn't have expected me to go to Lexie, who would provide the next part. And Lucas, the next in clowns, they were a present from Dad. He knew I wouldn't go into the nursery. And Therese, he knew what I called her, how I didn't like to be around her. He relied on my own predictability to keep me from finding the answer. I didn't get along with my sisters enough to get their cooperation. He counted on me being the same selfish, detached, untouchable loner I'd been ever since we entered the compound, living behind my wall, not letting anything out or anyone in. What else had he counted on me doing or not doing? There was a plastic tote of cleaner sitting nearby. I fiddled with the bottle of glass cleaner, thinking about how my father yelled at Mom and the girls if the lab wasn't spotless. I paused. Behind the bottle of glass cleaner, there was a container of bleach. I stared at it for a moment, then felt myself actually grinning. Yes, ammonia fumes. Ammonia fumes revealed the phenylethylamine ink. Donning a face mask and gloves, I went to work with a beaker of ammonia. I held the parchment over the beaker. Please, please, please. A message slowly revealed itself. Numbers. Lots of numbers. Over 24. The code? What else could it be? I had it. I had the power to get us out of here. Someone clapped hands behind me in a slow rhythm. I turned. My father stood there, leaning against the door jamb, still clapping slowly. Well done, Eli. I'm impressed. His face was raw and bruised. Dad, are you okay? He shrugged a bit. Oh, fine. Fine as anyone can be when his wife was trying to poison him. His shout made me jump. I took a step back, picking up the parchment as I moved. Had he done something to Mom? She didn't know. She just wanted you to have bread and... He held up his hands to silence me. His voice was sweaty, but he didn't shake. Exactly the opposite. So you have the code now. I nodded. We can get out, get you some help. I don't need any help. Again, his shout made me jump. I clutched the code in my palm. He took a step inside the doorway. I had to get out, away from him, and try the code. Me getting out was our only chance. Dad let out a loud, ragged sigh. You try to do everything for your family, and what did they do in return? I sensed it was a rhetorical question. They try and poison you. He picked up a Bunsen burner and slammed it to the floor for effect. I used the distraction to take a step towards the door, even as he moved slowly away from it, looking for something else to throw. I gave you everything. Everything. He started picking up anything in his reach and hurled each item as he spoke. Everything. A tray of test tubes hit the ground. Everything. A pile of petri dishes hit the near wall. Glass flying. Everything. When he used both hands to pick up a microscope, I took my chance and ran out of the room as fast as I could. I heard a roar behind me as he realized I was gone. I shoved the parchment in my pocket and ran towards the door, my arms pumping. My heart pounded, more from the last few minutes than the physical exertion. At the hallway into the infirmary, I paused. I wanted to make sure Mom was okay, make sure he hadn't hurt her, but the only way to truly help her was to open the door and get help. Eli? Dad's faint voice from behind me spurred me on. I ran down the hall into the family room and through the archway. The corridor seemed shorter than I remembered, because all too soon the silver door stood before me. In the surface, my face was reflected. Despite the distortion, I could still see my terrified expression. I saw myself there at the door, clutching the parchment. Yes, I was scared. More than that, I was ready to do it, to try the code. The silver door had a panel with a keypad. So simple. Yes, so simple if you had the code. I prayed that I did. I prayed so hard. I hoped God was still around to hear. I had to stop and think for a moment, to breathe. My hands shook. There might be a security lock as well, something that shut down the system if any wrong numbers were pushed. I took a few precious moments to breathe deep, try to calm myself. I couldn't risk hitting a wrong number. Not when I was almost there. You're so close, Eli. I gasped, whipping around to see my father. He smiled, his hands behind his back. This is such a big occasion. You shouldn't be all alone. One of his arms slowly came around, revealing that it was wrapped around Lucas, who looked up at me, confusion all over his face. Eli? I looked from him to Dad and shook my head, panic rising in my chest. Let him go. Dad's smile only widened when he gripped Lucas by the shoulders. Let him go? He leaned down and spoke to Lucas. You want to go with Eli, right? Lucas nodded, looking sure of himself. Dad straightened up. He wants to go. I didn't know what to do. Lucas, remember that song I taught you? Do you think you can cover your ears and sing that song at the same time? Lucas grinned. I think so. Go ahead. With his small hands, Lucas reached up and covered his ears. Then, in his voice, quiet at first, began to sink. I am Henry the Eighth. I am Henry the Eighth. I am. His voice got louder as he kept singing, but it wasn't loud enough to drown out my father's words. What do you think, Eli? His hands moved up to my brother's throat as he spoke. Should I choke the life out of him? His hands moved farther up. Or just snap his neck? That would be quicker. My head went from side to side. Don't. Despite trying to stay calm, the word was a plea. Please don't. It's your choice. I just need that. His eyes went to the paper in my hand. Lucas was back at the chorus again, singing louder, a worried look on his face. Eli, it's time to choose. I glanced at the paper again, wondering how many of the numbers I could memorize before. Now! I jumped. So did Lucas, who stopped singing. He tried to wiggle away from Dad's grasp, but he couldn't. Choose, Eli. I could chance it. Lucas was his child. He wouldn't hurt him. But then I looked into my father's eyes, only they were no longer my father's. They belonged to a madman. Lucas looked up at me and whimpered, his eyes wet. My knees nearly buckled as I stepped forward, holding out the paper. Here, take it. Let him go. Dad released Lucas as he reached out for the coat and took it from him. Good choice, son. Very unselfish. With the paper still in his hand, he gave me a casual salute and left. I knelt down in front of Lucas. Are you okay? Lucas nodded as he sniffled. That was scary. My arms went around him and he leaned into me. I know, I was scared too. My father's footsteps receded down the hall. I leaned back, looking into my brother's face. But now we have to be brave, okay? We have work to do. Lucas wiped his nose on his sleeve. What kind of work? I glanced over at the door. I gotta figure out some numbers. I stood back up and took his hand. Come on.